before you speak. Thank y'all for waiting. All of us had problems. Me and my wife are having them now. We have hope. But this woman, Mr. Forrest, have probably been through more than any of us with this thing. And the thing that we have dreaded, they have actually been through. And not many times that I go by your house that I do not call y'all out in prayer and ask God to give y'all strength. So she has a lot to say, and I wish I could just make things better for her and her good husband, but we're blessed to have you, and we are. Mine is just real life compared to what you've been through.
Well, I'm Teresa Forrest, and y'all pray for me because this is my first time talking to you. And this is Victoria. And boy, she did have a story to tell. She had often said that if she could share her story, her life would not have been in vain. So today I will be her voice and share it for her. During this opioid epidemic that we were facing, I don't know if you're aware, but during the months or the year of June 2016 through June 2017, there have been 66,000 people died of overdose. That's more Americans that were killed during the whole entire Vietnam War. What can I really say about Victoria? She was my little wild child. She was my baby. Victoria was always a needy child. By the time she was only 1 year old, her father had had a complete mental breakdown. He was later, many years later, diagnosed as full-blown schizophrenia. By the time she was 2 and her brother was 4, I made the decision to leave the marriage and focus my attention on my children. I had asked the doctors then, could my children inherit? And I was told yes. And my biggest fear would always be Victoria. For almost 5 years, I was a single mom and finally started dating a long-time old friend, my husband, Gerald. And I'm going to stop right here and thank you for standing by me all those years. A lot of men would have walked out and left. He already had 2 teenage daughters. And I had an older daughter, Ashley, who was already married, and my son, Chad, and Victoria. Together we had the Brady Bunch. At first, everything was good. Victoria was now in school. She accelerated in academics and was making friends that are still her friends today. She always tried to do her very best in everything she did. And as the years passed, Victoria grew into a teenager. She started cheering for Whittington. She started cheering at South Lenore her first 2 years, and she remained a straight-A honor student. In 2011, Victoria turned 16, and she got her license. She was finding a whole new world opening up in front of her. She had a part-time job, but I began to see changes. She was withdrawing from me and her family and all her longtime school friends, and she began to hang with a whole new set of friends. I didn't know much about drugs, like many of you. There was nothing ever talked about the opioid epidemic or opioid addiction. I didn't never hear anything about it. I guess I was more concerned that she was inheriting some of her father's genetic traits. I had her in counseling for years. Finally, in September of 2012, before that, I need to add, our home became a pure war zone. I pure dreaded coming home. She would just have outbursts, and I would question. I couldn't understand if it was drugs or if it was the mental problems going on with her. And it was just, I can't even describe. If you've never lived it, you cannot understand what we had to deal with. In 2012, Victoria was in a wreck. She had had 2 wrecks prior to that. But this time she was in a wreck and police found 7 hydrocodone pills in her wallet. She was going to be charged with possession of level 2 substance and no, they talked about trafficking, but I'm getting ahead of myself. And all I could think of was, my God, she's 17. Oh, we need to get her some help. We hired an attorney. And the shame and humiliation began. Everybody was pointing fingers. Good job, Mom. Way to go, Mom. Way to go, Dad. Where's the parents? Where were y'all? It was an awful time. All I could think of was I needed to help my child and I needed to save her. There was nothing here in Lenore County. We went through court at that time, but it was just beginning. She was 17. She had her whole future ahead of her. I went and hired an attorney to represent her, and I started getting her back into counseling. But I could see she was fixing to be made a big example of. What had happened, she had to be manned. I think what I'm trying to say is, if this had happened today, I am seeing things slowly changing. And I would like to think today that if you had a 17, 16-year-old being arrested for the very first time, that maybe the courts would step in and say, let's send this child court-mandated treatment. That was never offered to her. The few days that followed got even worse. The embarrassment, the gossip, it had hit the papers, it was on the news. I was told that some of the parents of her longtime friends had said that they couldn't hang around with Victoria anymore. It was breaking my heart. Then we learned that Lenore County schools would not let her attend public school with a pending felony. I went and met with the school board and was rejected. Victoria had to accept the fact that she had to finish her first semester of senior high school, of her senior year of high school, to an alternative school for troubled teens. And I think that that added more to her depression. Our home was in more turmoil than ever. Just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, we were contacted by a drug enforcement officer. The pills had been weighed, and she had just enough to charge her with trafficking. We were called down to the courthouse. I sat with Victoria and this officer for 2 hours. We were to the point that he was wanting to wire her. She gave him names, informants, information, who she bought from, and he asked if she could be wired. He wanted to send her into a crack house to make a deal. No, that's your job. You're not going to take my 17-year-old kid and send her in a crack house.
Come on.
I contacted the lawyer we had, and he told us, he contacted him. If you're going to charge her with trafficking, he said, let's do it now. I want to take all this in the case at one time. We never heard anything else from him. I arranged to get her in IOP, weekly drug tests. We attended weekly group meetings. Victoria began to feel like I had her in a prison. And she would lash out. She felt isolated and lonely. I cried with her many, many nights. Her case was finally took to trial in January the following year, and her charges were reduced to possession of a controlled substance to a misdemeanor charge. She was placed on a year probation with monthly probation fees of $100 a month. I remember asking, how's this girl supposed to pay $100 a month, even if she had a part-time job, keep gas in her car, she was trying to help with her insurance. They said, let her figure it out. Who do you think that's going to fall on? She was ordered 40 hours community service, and she was able to finally go back to school and finish her final semester at South Lenore and graduated in the spring of 2013. Right after graduation, Victoria turned 18 in July. And I remember her calling me one morning and was screaming and crying. I just got to work. And she said, Mama, they're arresting me. And I could hear a bunch of racket in the background. I said, what for? What have you done? She said, I haven't done anything. They're coming back and getting me for trafficking. I got off work, flew to the courthouse. They had placed her under a $250,000 bond and was charging her with trafficking from the incident a year before. I wanted to take that officer and just shake him. What are you trying to do? It was all over the news the next day. It was all over TV. What's she done now? She done something else. What are y'all doing? You know, I had to step in and explain to people, this is an old incident. It's not nothing new. Right. And I was told that there's no statute of limitations on the pen and felony. They can come back and get you 10 years later. I don't understand the purpose behind that, but the 14 that they arrested that night, they had them all together. It made it look like this one big drug bust. Yeah. Several of those were like Victoria, old charges. They just stuck in that and waited. That needs to change.
Amen.
The only thing it done to her was threw her into a deeper depression. More people turned their backs on her. A lot of them didn't even believe me. So, after that, the last 2 years, when you have a child that starts this early, from 16 to 18, a parent has just 2 years to try to get them, because once they turn 18, they're on their own. And you can do everything you can. When she did turn 18, or after that, we were going through all that. Her dad had some rental properties, and one was open and she wanted to move in it. I couldn't stop her. He was letting her do it. So I went out, we helped her set up house, and her boyfriend moved in with her. I would go out there every day trying to check on her and him to see what I could see. Wasn't nothing much else I could do. Her boyfriend was there all the time. I remember going over one particular time, and this elder man was in the living room, and he was introduced to me as her boyfriend's Uncle John. I sat and talked with this man. Little did I know. In January of 2014, they had been living probably 6-7 months. Victoria's boyfriend called me, and he said, you need to meet me at Hardy's. He was working at Hardy's. He said, Victoria has started using heroin. I was like, no, this can't be. He said he would come home and the house would be full and he didn't know what was going on. I'm not going to say he didn't try it, but he never ran with it as hard as she did. It just took her. I found out that the man that I met as his Uncle John was not his uncle. It was her heroin dealer. I learned later how this man told Victoria he could not get her the 65 Percocets that she was needing for that day. 110 pounds, 65 Percocets. He said, why not try heroin? It's cheaper, it's better. No way, she said. She was always scared of needles as a little girl. She would turn her head. I'd have to hold her down. I can't do that. I'm not doing needles. He said, I'll do it for you. She described how he tied her arm up, got the spoon, and injected her several times before she learned how to do it herself. She said she looked away the first time, but the moment it started in, she knew she had found her new love. She did go to rehab. She was in rehab 28 days because this boyfriend had threatened to leave her if she didn't go. She did go. We got her in. Took us 2 days. No detox here. I sat with her, watched her shake. I even went and bought her some pills to keep her from going into full-blown detoxing on her own, trying to help her. She stayed 28 days. During that 28 days, she met another boy in the area she was there with who lived in the area, and they walked out together. People don't understand How can they walk out? I said, this is free will. You can't keep these people locked in a rehab. If she was my kid, I know I would take her and tie her up. Try it. See what happens. Trust me, I thought about it. She walked out with him, and for 3 months stayed with him, fighting, spiraling out of control. She was arrested again for DWI. She had broke her probation, not adhering to her PO agreements, not mandated her drug tests. She just kept spiraling downward. That's when I had joined this group, support group called the Addict's Mom. I began to seek support for myself, and a whole new world opened up to me. And that's when I began to learn about the opioid epidemic that we're currently in, about enabling and understanding what to do, what not to do, and when to say no. I became a Facebook detective. I was stalking her, living in fear. I lost my mama in 2014 that year, and Victoria finally showed while we were at the graveside with her new boyfriend. She was